So let me start off by falling with the door into the house or something like that. This fork is not wide enough for a modern-ish wheel. So I need to expand, and since this is a 20-inch fork and a vintage one at it, it's not gonna take easy to expanding it cold setting, but I'm gonna try anyway, and we shall see. Once it is expanded, also need to then bend them parallel to the wheel, the fallout ends. So we got a really lovely fork. I love this fork, and it's more or less ready to be used, and it's got the right length of steer tube, and it's naked steel versus the cast. Looks slightly brassy because I used a brass wire brush, rotational wire brush. Already put little dimples here for the lower race of the headset in order to set a little bit stronger. So here's the fork. Anyway, so let's zoom out. What are we doing here? Here's my next little project. And little, I always say little quick project, but then again, I am me and I always have too many ideas to make things perfect. What are we looking at here? We love to travel and we go many places, and I like to cycle. To me, a day walking is a dead day, so I prefer to cycle. And that means wherever we travel to, I want to take bicycles. And that's not always easy. And my wife's always complaining about the clumsy boxes that a regular bicycle, once it's packed, needs. And also the amount of time it takes packing it in the first place and then setting it up on location and then packing it again at the end of the trip. So I was consistently harboring a more simple bicycle to take that A, would fit in a normal, regular aeroplane-sized case or box that goes with those dimensions, and that's only achieved by a folding bike or by a bike that can be separated into two halves. So we are looking at a very German, very 70s, 60s folding bicycles. This one, the brand is Record. Has nothing to do with Opel Record. It's a folding bike, so basically the bolt, whatever thingy madoodle metal thing that hinges it, it's been taken out, and that can be taken out with a little spring clip, so that works. I found yesterday that on this little brake plate, I wonder if you can see, this is made in Germany here on the upper right corner. Obviously the center is for holding a brake, whereas I must have drilled out the size of hole. It seems too big. And it says here, patent pending, whenever that was, 1970, 1965, 1975, we do not know. There's also a number. I might dig this out. So this bike I have built before. So all the gray primer is all my fault. I changed the shape of this here. I changed the shape of that. I made extra holes here, 2 extra holes. I made these bigger and I made that bigger because I was running it without a brake. I was actually using a back pedal brake of a 3-speed or a 2-speed or whatever. The reason why I built this before, and this must have been a good 20 years ago, was that I arrived at my parents in the south of Germany on Lake Constance, and I read in the newspaper on Wednesday that at the weekend somewhere in Austria there was going to be a marathon where you, with the youngest Olympic defined and accepted marathon kind, which was using folding bikes. So there were some limitations. You had to use the original handlebar. You were not allowed to have gears, so single speed only. And you were needing to keep the bike in a folding situation, so I had to be able to fold. And don't know what else. So yeah, I built up this bike, but I took off all the tabs. There was a tab for a lock probably. There was don't know why there is paint here. I slimmed down the plate for the kickstand, so it would no longer hold the kickstand but still stabilizes the frame. There was probably some fixed point for a chain guard here. And what else? I might have beautified the shape of that. And I had from Wednesday till Saturday morning. The actual marathon race was on Saturday. So I basically built this bike from what my dad had laying around. He typically at the time went to the German recycling station where people would put metal parts, and he would bring home folding bikes, because my dad also always had a thing about folding bikes. That's another story. Anyway, so here's me about 20 years later. I found this bicycle in my dad's house. Still, the house doesn't lose anything. And okay, so now what am I doing now? I want to make the most simple bicycle that I can think of, so that there's the least amount of setup necessary when you arrive at your location, and I want it to be fitting inside the dimensions as you're allowed to travel with on any airline. So it's basically the size of a case. Yes, I will use a cardboard box that optimizes the way things store. So you go to the bicycle dealer and ask for a smallish box, and you might have to trim it a bit, but that's basically what I do. I build a box precisely the maximum possible dimensions for an airline, and then the bike goes in there. So this bike will fit 20-inch. I don't want to get any smaller. I had 18-inch folding bikes in the past. I had 16-inch folding bikes in the past. I don't like that, so to me the minimum size I ever want to deal with is 20. And these tires are compromised for what I usually do, because I always end up in the mud. But hey ho, for this kind of purpose, we are maximizing the minimizing of weight, and therefore I'm not using fat tires either. So here's one trick. I'm gonna make this fixed, so there's no brakes. And the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna use a very modern, very, very nice mountain bike hub. This one needs a service, something's not nice, but it's a disc brake hub, and therefore I can then mount this kind of fixed cog on it. You can buy that. This is now no longer actually super expensive. Can't not remember what I paid for it, but around £10, or maybe even less, maybe shipping, yes, £10. So this mounts on basically the disc brake position, okay, and otherwise there's no function in other than that it's a hub. This obviously is a quick release, and that's no good for fixed, so I'm going to change the axis, and I'm going to put some spaces in there so we fit the spacing. I'm not changing the spacing of the frame. I'm adjusting the size of axis, and then I'm just going to bolt it on. I might even still consider foot pegs as you would have on BMX bikes, in which case braking would be via your shoe on the rear tire, or I might add one brake, who knows. I can easily do that. Still vintage front brake. Let me think. Is there a nice brake up there somewhere? Oh. Yeah. We could use a brake. So that would be one brake, one cable, one lever, okay? Maybe. Maybe some of the locations that I'm traveling to requires a brake by law anyway, because they don't accept fixies in some areas by law. Okay. So here's basically 3 areas where I need to put in some brains and do some experimenting. 1, cold setting of the fork in order to fit a modernish 20-inch front wheel with a QR. Yes, that's going to be QR for ease of an assembly. The rear is not QR. The rear will be fixed with bolts. So here I need a axis, and I need to see why this is not running smoothly. Might need new ball bearings, who knows. Might need some races, who knows. Next job. I do not like the cotter pin solution at all. I hate those things with a passion. Cotter pin cranks, so also the weight of them, they're usually solid steel and they weigh about twice as much as something like this. Yes, this is drilled because it's mine, but that's fine for the time being. The issue here is this is a square taper, and I need to basically put in this frame that has little cups like that. That's the only way how to add a bottom bracket, as far as I know. I might study that a bit. This might be, I think this is smaller than BMX. BMX would be a good solution. No, sorry, what am I talking about? Anyway, I'm gonna keep with this original sort of setup for the bottom bracket. This seems fine. I'm gonna see what I can, is it fine? Yeah. What I will do is I will put individual new balls in there, so we get about 40% extra balls in the space when we ditch the little cage. And then I'm going to use an axis with an end that is a square taper. So that should solve this problem. So that's my main issues on this build. So I'm going to corner these problems first. So bottom bracket and the axis with a square taper. The rear wheel with the axis condition so it can be bolted in here. And then the cold setting. So that's the 3 issues of this little build, and the result should be the most simple, smallest packageable, most easy packageable bicycle that I will travel with. And from now on, I will never ever need to go anywhere without a bicycle, because my short amount of needed garments, bathing, swimming trunks, swimming goggles, and that's all I need, and some change of clothes will fit with this bicycle in a case. Let me know what you think. Take care.